Welcome to another episode of Silvie and Didy React. I'm Silvie,
And I'm Diddy.
and today we are responding to the LA fires. But before I give more details about that, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. Spoilers, we're actually going to respond to a video given to us by one of the comments in the future. But for this episode, Diddy, a lot of people, I'm sure you too, have at least been hearing about the
Yes.
fires in LA.
Mm-hmm. I have.
Wild stuff.
Yep. I've
So,
seen a lot of crazy
mhm.
takes. I've seen a lot
Yeah.
of tinfoil hat. So I'm very curious what this video is going to be.
So this one is not the conspiracies, although I've heard some too, and they're very interesting and juicy. And maybe we'll talk about them in this
Mm-hmm.
video. But this one is actually about one of the residents in LA who stood and actually managed to safeguard his home and the homes around him just with his
Wow.
own hose.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a very interesting. It's inspirational, but also makes you question why couldn't this have been done more effectively?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it makes you also wonder how safe that actually is, because
Yes,
theoretically he's actually putting his life in danger to do that.
that's true.
Um, So yes, to a certain extent, heroics, hurrah, but
Mhm.
also uh, that I wouldn't necessarily want every person to follow that example. But I haven't even seen the video yet, so we don't
All
know.
right. Yeah, yeah, and I'll push back on that a little just to say I think there are some times when people's like livelihoods and their way of life is so in danger that sometimes you do have to act.
Hmm. Yeah, fight or
Um,
flight. I definitely understand that.
yeah, yeah, and it's like I know that like the idea of risking yourself for your house sounds silly, but it's like, what if that's all you've got, or like, what if that is so meaningful and that's like kind of
Right.
ancestral ground, so to speak. But let's watch the video and we can have
Yeah.
some hot
Okay.
takes.
So
Yeah.
I will start bringing that up, and we're gonna make sure share computer sound is on this time. Okay. So
Here
you're
we
seeing
go.
that?
Yes, and it looks pretty bad. It's crazy to believe.
Okay, yes. I'm not seeing what you're talking about where this guy saved the houses yet.
That was not the house
Okay,
that he saved.
yeah, okay. So I'll go ahead and hit play.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, right off the bat, the contrast from the other side of the street
Yeah. Yeah.
is pretty stark.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if you have more to say, but we can keep going. I just wanted to say, like, his house seems pretty intact.
Well, it's one man versus global warming, and the man has triumphed.
Or maybe more like localized warming. Very, very localized, very, very warming.
It's just
Okay, let's keep
inspirational
playing.
to us all. Go ahead.
Well, it's devastating. I've lived here my whole life. I know these people that lives in all these houses. I know the houses. This is my memories, and they're gone. But unfortunately, this is California, and California is a desert, and you get fires like this. This is natural. This is from our manufacturing. It's photographic. We started off on photographic equipment. The the house was built by my mother and father in 1960, and I lived here my whole life, so there's a lot of memories here, and I think I owed it to them as well to try my best to save it. But just did it with the hose. I got the heavier the heavier hoses. And I got the mask, I got the goggles, I got a helmet, a construction helmet from work. There you go, hosey.
All right, so pause.
So he's
So,
just using his garden hose?
yes,
What in the world?
I know.
How is that even possible?
They're going to
Like,
explain, but it's just crazy. Yeah.
yeah, like you have a raging wildfire, and this guy's just like, okay, come out. I'm coming out with a garden hose.
Yeah. Well, one of the
Goodness.
things too is the way it was described, the firestorm, you would get like a tiny ember that just like makes its way onto your property, and then because nobody's putting out the fires, it builds and builds and builds.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the interesting things. Like you see pictures from this from the disaster of currently ongoing, but then also prior ones. A lot of people on the internet um, are like, how is it possible that all the houses are burned, but all the trees are not?
Hmm.
And that's exactly what you're talking about. Where if you have one house erupts in flames and then embers are coming off, those tiny embers may not be enough to ignite a tree, which is full of moisture, full of all this stuff. But
Right.
houses, which are made from dry wood, yes, the roof line is probably fire retardant to a certain extent. But if
Right.
anything under the roof starts burning, eventually the roof is going to go as well. And then once that goes up in flames, it just keeps going and it becomes this sort of like concentrated burning of houses and not the trees on the property, which is pretty crazy to think.
Oh
But
yeah.
yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, I guess I just said that and now it's like, wow, so as long as he's putting out these little embers that are coming towards his house or onto his property,
Yeah.
apparently that's actually sufficient,
Yeah.
which
Which
is
is crazy
pretty
to consider.
crazy. Yeah.
Yes.
So anyway, let's keep going and see what all he actually does.
Hmm.
And then when you see this vortex of embers in that.
Wait, okay, so I'm pausing. That is the mask? Just the
It's
simple
like an
face. I was
N95.
actually picturing like a gas mask, you know what I
Nope.
mean?
He's just got his
Oh my god.
N95 and a helmet and a hose.
So okay, so when he says helmet, he's not saying skateboard helmet, is he? Or like
They
bike
don't
helmet?
show it, so I don't know.
Gosh, okay. This guy's crazy.
That wind. It's pretty scary, but some things in life are worth fighting for. I mean, if I were to lose this house, it would be very difficult to afford to be able to build a new house, to pay the enormous property taxes they have here. What would I do? These are my wife's, so I better take care of them.
Even the fish survived.
Yes, I was awake all night, all day. Got a little bit of sleep after things calmed down a little bit, after all the houses burned down. I did probably hurt a rib jumping the fence over there, but I'll have to see a doctor.
So this guy is putting out fires with his hose with a mask that was probably not fire resistant, first of all.
No.
And he's jumping fences.
Yes.
Oh my
He's
god.
old
Yeah,
man
I
Steve
mean,
Rogers.
oh my goodness. Yeah, this guy's crazy. Okay, let's keep going.
When I get back. When I was out here hosing the house down and getting ready, and when the houses started to burn, I didn't see one single fire truck out here at all. Zero. if they had some fire trucks and just put a squirt here, a squirt there, and kept an eye on things, all these houses would be here now. I'm telling you right now, I saw it with my own eyeballs. All these houses, the houses behind me, they're all gone. They started with one little spark, one little small fire. They just squirted those out, had a few people out there. They'd all be here now.
That's a fair point. And as you're saying, Sylvie, um, what I was explaining earlier, how the houses ignite spark to spark, and that's one of the reasons
Yeah.
why a lot of the brush and trees around the houses are still standing, even though the
Yeah.
houses have burned down. Um, but the problem is just the sheer size of the fires.
Right.
So what he's saying is probably true, but does California have the firefighting capacity to post fire trucks in every neighborhood when they would probably prefer to have those at the main sources of the fire, like where it's outside of town and like raging and destroying acres of forest and whatnot,
Yeah.
um, to then expend some of those forces to sort of safeguard neighborhoods. To his
Well,
point, it could be
yeah.
pretty easy, but at the same time, what are you losing by doing that?
So I guess the thing is the one of the themes is mismanagement of the fire department. So the fire department did have its budget cut. That's what the fire chief said. And even though uh, Mayor Bass, I want to say, so the mayor
Gavin
of LA.
Newsom recently tweeted something that said he didn't cut the
So
budget, but if the fire chief is saying that the budget was cut, then the budget was cut. So,
so there's the city's fire department budget, and then there's the state's fire department budget.
mm,
And Gavin Newsom also will make that argument. It's like, well, this reservoir wasn't the state-run reservoir, so I'm not responsible for that. And it's just very, very icky political response to a disaster like that.
right,
But to his point, and this is kind of where I think people get into this thought bubble of like, if the LA Fire Department doesn't do this, it won't get done. What about the insurance companies that run this place? If they had spent money to get like private firefighting units to these places, they would have spent less overall than having to cover a whole burned down house with all of its property that's probably insured as well.
right.
So like in terms of like the cost of the fire versus the cost of putting it out, to his point, there could have been resources dedicated to that. But to your point, one of the controversies is that LA's fire department had seen a reduction. And there was also this controversy about DEI, where the fire chief, or well, I don't know if it's the fire chief, but there's the video making the rounds, and maybe we'll respond to that at some point. But the person's like, when I respond to a fire, it helps people to know that a firefighter looks like them. And the question's like, can you like pick up my husband from a burning fire, because the firefighter in question is a woman saying
Hmm.
that it's important.
Well,
She's like,
yeah.
if he was in there, like,
I mean,
like,
my quick
mhm,
reaction would
yeah,
be that as long as the physical requirements, because there are requirements for
yes,
firefighters. I actually have a friend who just recently became a firefighter, and there's
nice,
rigorous physical training that's involved in that. I would, I know, I guess some people out there will disagree with me, but in the case of this, where it's literally lives are on the line, if the physical requirements are the same, then I
yeah,
don't see why anyone can't become a firefighter.
yes,
And then, of course, once you're wearing all the gear, it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't
right,
matter if you're black, white, Asian, whatever. All I'm going to see is a person dressed up while my house is blazing, and I'm going to
right.
hope that they can help drag me out. You know what I mean?
Yes. But
That's the main point.
this
Uh,
female firefighter, though, her argument was like, well, if your husband's in a burning building that I'd have to like drag him out of, like that's his fault for being there. And it's kind of just like, like more to your point, Diddy, if you meet the requirements, then you can do the job. It's
yeah,
more important to save the lives than to look like the
and
people.
that's the dumbest argument because I feel like part of, I mean, maybe this is not, I mean, you know, Sylvie, maybe you have a better reaction to this.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get through this video eventually, viewer. Don't worry. Um, but I'm really curious. You can't just say, "Oh, it's your fault for being in the fire," right?
Yes.
Because obviously firefighters deal with this on a daily basis, and I'm sure they would love for people to behave more appropriately,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it seems to me that this firefighter chief that you're referring to would
Yeah.
absolutely hate what this guy just did in the video.
Yeah.
He stayed and he fought the fire himself,
Right.
and that fire chief or whatever position that woman holds is saying it's that person's fault for being stuck in the fire, and now I have to go rescue him, and I may not be able to.
Right.
No, people do not behave logically when their memories, their lives are at risk.
Right.
That
Or they
you
act
get
with
into
different
that fight or
values.
flight, like
Yeah.
psychological state, and you're not thinking logically anymore. You're thinking very emotionally. Maybe, you know, there is some differences between guys and gals, right? And their emotional states and
Mhm.
how they deal with them. So maybe guys and girls, there's still some kind of difference, but you're not just in your normal state. You're not in a normal cognitive state. So you're not making normal cognitive decisions. So,
Well, and I would even say valuing your property, even if it means risking your own life, is not always an irrational position to take. I think that there are times, like you look at the American Revolution, it's like we didn't fight it because the British were threatening to kill everybody. We fought it because they were threatening to take away our livelihood
hmm
and our rights to not be
hmm
taxed. Like, which
yeah,
is,
and that
yeah,
brings up the people who like joined the military. They're
yeah,
essentially doing that. They're putting their lives on the line for our personal property and freedoms,
yeah,
literally. So,
yeah. And so, like, this guy, like, I get where people will say, like, oh, he could have died. It's like, yeah, but like, imagine if there had been a greater response to prep the area and he wasn't alone by himself, the risk would have been much less. Like that's the whole argument of government is what's dangerous or implausible for an individual is safer and plausible for a whole group of individuals working together.
hmm
Like that's the whole reason that the LA government was there theoretically and have a fire department is to save people's houses.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and finish this video out. Because I have some more things that I want to say, but let's just
Let's
get
do
the
it.
video out of the way.
All right.
Things that I mean, I've been doing fires here since I got here, basically. And like one of the things that the fire chiefs always say is just like,
Well, you know, I'll leave that to other people to decide. Um, I did what I needed to do. I did what I wanted to do. I did what I thought I could do, and that's what I did. Went over there and closed in on this area over here. We started getting embers, so I got these trees on fire, but I was able to control that. Oh, actually, they've been very gracious. The neighbor over here thanked me for saving his house, and the neighbor over here thanked me. So, thanks is plenty.
And I think that's it.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Let's
Sorry.
watch it again.
Okay, let's stop sharing.
All right, Dave, let's get your
Yeah.
reactions.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of had a thought on the point of going back to your insurance point,
Hmm.
where it's possible that they could spend a nominal amount in comparison to what they now have to spend to rebuild all these homes, at
Hmm.
least the ones that had coverage for fire damage.
Yeah.
Um, it seems that in California specifically, that would be very prudent, right?
Yes.
To take preemptive cautionary measures for this. And that's where it's so I don't want to go full tinfoil hat here, but there
Yeah.
is merit to the arguments that people are making where there are certainly things that the government, city and state could have done to prevent. So people are talking about mismanagement of the forest. And, you know, it's using the term mismanagement is a little,
Euphemistic.
no, not, I actually, I would say a little harsh on the other,
Uh,
because the reason I say this is that they've made rules and regulations to try to protect wildlife. So to a certain extent, they're like following their own rules, but then there is an argument to be made where those rules are making fires more dangerous,
yes.
right? And that's almost where like you need some kind of audit from a third party outside of the state that doesn't have stakes, to
Yeah.
say what is reasonable to do for wildlife and what do you also need to do to protect property
Yeah.
in the event of fires. So and that's where it's like it's easy to just say, "Oh, your rules are dumb. You destroyed all these people's homes." But you know, to that guy's point, these people are living in a desert. So to a
Yeah.
certain extent, fires are inevitable. But then to a greater extent, what is the city and the state doing to manage the damage that is caused by inevitable fires?
Right. If they're inevitable, why didn't you prepare for them?
Right. Well, that's
Yeah.
see, and that's where I want to I want to calm the rhetoric a little bit.
Hmm.
It's difficult to really say you didn't do anything because I'm sure they are doing things,
Right.
but it's sort of like people are kind of pointing out that there seems to be like a cascade of comical errors that
Yes.
just made these fires in particular just so much bigger than they needed to be. You know, like I've seen people showing evidence that one of the reservoirs was empty.
Uh-huh.
I don't know. I don't know what the impact of that is. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But it's like that probably has an impact, especially once those fires start to get residential, as that guy experienced. Luckily, he had water. You know what I mean? Uh,
Yes.
he had water with which he could fight the fires. Apparently, that might not have been the case for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
From what
yeah.
I know, it appears that more like what you're saying, Diddy. It wasn't that they just like, oops, I forgot to pay the bill for the firefighters, but I would almost say it was more in a shift of priority. So the reason that they don't clear out the forests or do this or do that is because they don't want to mess with the ecosystem. But the consequence is the fires are going to be worse because you don't get rid of the underbrush.
Hmm.
Um, One of the things that happened in California was they increased the homelessness budget while decreasing the firefighting budget. So it was a shift of priority for people who were homeless.
Hmm.
And so when I talk about
And
mismanagement,
that's
yeah,
ironic, isn't it? You're protecting people
yeah.
who don't have property at the sake of people who do have property.
And now a lot of people don't have property, so they're going to have to increase the homelessness budget.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, so we did discuss beforehand.
Yes,
Unfortunately, I have a hard time cutoff.
yes, you
So
do.
do you want to go ahead and give some final thoughts? I know you have more reactions to this. Maybe we
Oh,
can
yes.
grab another video in the future.
Yeah. Well, I was
Maybe
going to say,
once more information comes out or something.
Yeah, I was going to say what would be really funny is if we both share the tinfoil hat that we have heard, the tinfoil hat theory. So, what's the tinfoil hat theory that you heard?
I guess it's not. I say tinfoil hat, but it's just this idea that like Gavin Newsom and like other like county and city and state representatives are like personally antagonistic towards residents or something.
Oh,
Like basically the way people are coming across, and this isn't necessarily from one person in particular. This is just looking at the extent of reactions. It sort of seems like the internet as a whole is just like Gavin Newsom is bad and he's destroying California personally, like yada, yada, yada. And it's like you can, again, like I was saying before, you can definitely make an argument where across the board, the rules that they're putting in place make it more difficult to contain fires, right? But that's
hmm
not to say that Gavin Newsom is personally at fault
yeah,
for all of this property damage.
right.
And so that's where like you see Gavin Newsom responding to these quote unquote tinfoil hat conspiracies rather than the meritus arguments that are like trying to get at the rules and regulations that have prevented adequate forest management
That's right.
and things like that. So he's responding to the dumb things
And not
uh,
responding to the smart things.
because so many
Yeah.
people are saying dumb things. He's
Mhm.
not responding to the things that have merit.
All
Um,
right.
so yeah, I mean, I've kind of given all of my reactions. I guess my final reactions is like I just applaud that guy. I'm glad he's still alive,
Me too.
honestly. Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess it goes to show that maybe with proper planning and maybe with some preventative measures from an insurance company, wow, that would be pretty crazy. More homes could be saved.
Yeah. I was going to say the tin theory or the tinfoil theory that I heard was that's exactly the place where they would build a railway system. And I don't think that that's true, but it is one of those funny dumb things where it's like, and then they burned it down like Nero did.
They purposefully burned it so that they could
Yeah,
build something for the city.
yeah. There you go. We'll see if there's a new railway line through there. We'll
Yeah,
know it was
Elon Musk is going to do his weird tunnel subway
it's
thing.
boring. Yeah.
Okay, I think I got to
Uh,
go.
okay. Well, thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and share with us if you want us to respond to videos or articles that you're reading. Thank you very
Absolutely.
much.
See ya.